In a world filled with injustice and uncertainty at many times, it is understandable that some people desire a savior to guide them through the storm and into a better life. We are often not taught how to solve some of our problems, and it's only natural to look for a teacher who can provide us with the tools and lead us to a better life. There are innumerable examples throughout human history, however, where relying on a savior can go so wrong that you ruin your life by giving up your power, being unable to make up your own mind, and even having a falling out with those who actually care about you. Let me tell you a story about a real-life example of this. There was a man in the 1950s to the 1970s in the US who was very charismatic, had a vision, and said he wanted to help people. He was a leader who promised a better world, one free of racism, inequality, and suffering. He claimed that he would challenge the economic and racial injustices imposed by the US government, as well as to heal people spiritually. His ideology was that of a Christian Marxist blend. To his followers, he wasn't just a man, he was a savior, a hero who dared to challenge the injustices of the world. His charisma drew crowds, his sermons inspired hope, and his promises of salvation felt almost too good to be true. Over time, his influence grew. People left their homes, families, and everything they knew to follow him into what he called a utopian society. They believed in him so deeply that they ignored red flags, like his growing obsession with loyalty tests, where members were coerced into signing false confessions of crimes or even handing over custody of their children. They dismissed doubts like questions about his increasingly erratic behavior, including staged miracles where he would plant fake ill or disabled followers in the crowd to heal. And they justified actions like the public beatings and extreme punishments imposed on anyone who dared question his authority, rationalizing them as necessary for community discipline and loyalty in order to get to this utopian society. So, what happens when the hero you worship becomes a tyrant? When the savior you believed in begins to control every aspect of your life? Tragically, this man's promises led to one of the darkest chapters in modern history. His ideology went from that of collectivism to it being more about his own divinity by claiming to be a godlike figure. So loyalty to him personally became central to the movement. Worse yet, he convinced and tricked many of his followers into taking their own life, claiming that this would be the final protest against the oppression, racism, and exploitation of his followers by the US government and society at large. He portrayed it as a noble sacrifice to make a political statement and expose systematic injustices. This is the story of Jim Jones and the People's Temple, a chilling example of how hero worship can pave the way to not only cults, but to tragedy. This is an example of a more dramatic cult-like following that led to the demise of people. There are plenty of other examples in modern day that can lead to giving up a whole lot of wealth or putting yourself in danger or framing your whole entire ideology around what this person you admire believes in, instead of seeing their blind spots, making up your own mind, and having a better understanding of the nuances of reality. By the end of this video, you will have an understanding of how cults form from genuine admiration of a hero-like figure into a sycophantic following. This admiration gets morphed into idolization and, in the worst case scenario, idolatry. You will also understand what the solutions are and how one can prevent themselves from falling victim to hero worship. The idea of relying on a savior to fix everything has been explored by various philosophers, psychologists, and authors, each providing valuable insights into the psychological and social dynamics at play. So before we get to the solutions, let's explore the problem at the psychological level using examples of cults from modern day society. Here are 4 psychological mechanisms that can lead to hero worship and cults. So the first psychological mechanism is charismatic leadership. People have problems in their life and want a guiding voice to help them. This is only natural, but who from the crowd of celebrities or online personalities will catch their attention most? It will be someone who is not only saying the right things, but is saying the right thing in such a charismatic way that inspires trust and enthusiasm. When individuals place their faith in a charismatic leader as a savior, they often evaluate this person to a near divine status. The leader's authority becomes unquestionable because of how much confidence they have in this person. They also latch on to the hope that this person will solve their problems. It becomes an identity to them. Their ego sees any contradicting narrative or evidence against this person they admire as a threat to their identity and to the ego's survival. The followers begin to adopt this savior's beliefs, often without critical examination. This dynamic is central to cult formation, where the leader's word becomes law. For example, Elon Musk has cultivated a massive following that borders on hero worship. Admirers view him as a visionary savior destined to solve humanity's greatest challenges: climate change, space colonization, and technological advancement. Musk's proclamations, from promising Mars colonization to launching revolutionary technologies, often go unquestioned by his ardent supporters, even when his claims face scrutiny or setbacks. Erich Fromm, a German psychologist and psychoanalyst, has a theory called escape from freedom that can help explain this phenomenon. People overwhelmed by complex societal challenges may project their hopes onto a leader who promises clarity and solutions. Musk, with his bold visions, becomes a figure of certainty in uncertain times. The second psychological mechanism is loss of individual agency. By putting all their hopes in a savior, individuals may surrender their own decision-making power and critical thinking. This can lead to blind obedience and a strong in-group mentality, where questioning the leader or group beliefs is discouraged or punished. Again, this is because their ego is attached to the promises. They see the destination of having a utopia or the perfect mental state, like being an alpha male, as ideal for their survival. Andrew Tate's rise as a self-proclaimed alpha male leader illustrates how individuals can surrender their agency to an ideology. Followers drawn to his message of male dominance and success often adopt his ideas wholesale, abandoning their own critical thinking to align with his controversial teachings. His followers have more than likely felt weak for most of their lives. They think that by achieving some sort of male dominance, their problems will be solved instead of through authentic confidence and respect towards other people. The insights of psychologist Carl Jung suggest that this happens when people project their aspirations onto a leader, losing themselves in the process. By accepting Tate's teachings without question, followers risk replacing their individuality with someone else's ideology, creating a dangerous cycle of dependency and dogma. Jung's work on archetypes, particularly the hero archetype, explores how humans naturally gravitate towards figures who embody this role. The hero or savior is a powerful symbol in the collective unconscious, representing the individual or figure who can lead others out of the chaos or danger. While this archetype can inspire, it can also lead to unhealthy projections where people place unrealistic expectations on a single person to solve complex problems, ignoring their own agency. What we see with the Andrew Tate cult is that these individuals attach their ego onto the promises that are made by the person who they view as a savior, right? Andrew Tate says that I will make you a strong person, I will make you an alpha male. So when anyone tries to question that, it's like their hope for achieving this alpha male status is being threatened to them, and that's why they can respond in such an aggressive way. It's like their survival is being threatened to them. Number 3 is us versus them mentality. Cults often thrive on the idea that their leader is the only one who can save them from a corrupt or evil outside world. This creates a strong us versus them mentality, further isolating followers from differing perspectives and reinforcing their dependence on the leader. QAnon thrives on the idea that its followers are privy to hidden truths while the rest of the world remains in ignorance or corruption. This divisive us versus them mindset isolates believers, driving them deeper into the group's conspiracy-laden ideology while reinforcing distrust of outsiders. German-American historian and philosopher Hannah Arendt explains this dynamic as a tool of control. When a group defines itself against an enemy, it fosters loyalty at the cost of critical thinking. This isolation drives members further into the movement, strengthening their dependence on its leaders and ideas. Ultimately, this type of mentality of us versus them and creating an enemy can lead to an authoritarian or totalitarian society in which people allow themselves to be controlled by a dictator out of fear of an enemy. Speaking about how critical thinking can be impacted, what people in the QAnon movement fail to see is that the person who they view as a savior and everybody else who's associated with this savior are controlled by the same lobbyists that control the people who they view as an enemy. And the connections that their savior has with people like Epstein and other shady billionaires like Peter Thiel and Pierre Omidyar, QAnoners are blinded to focus only on the illusion of the enemy being just the Democrats who rub elbows with the same shady people as their savior. Number 4, manipulation and exploitation. Cult leaders often exploit their followers' desire for salvation by manipulating their fears and desires. promising security and answers to life's problems. This manipulation can lead to emotional, psychological, and even financial exploitation as followers become more deeply entrenched in the cult's ideology. Scientology's model of spiritual manipulation highlights how cults prey on followers' insecurities like fear of failure or spiritual ruin. Scientology entices people with promises of enlightenment while extracting significant financial and emotional commitments. Members are often trapped in a cycle of dependency, unable to question the authority of the organization. Sigmund Freud's analysis of the unconscious can help explain this. By appealing to hidden fears and unmet desires, cult leaders like L. Ron Hubbard position themselves as saviors by tapping into repressed insecurities, presenting their ideology as the sole solution, while systematically exploiting followers' vulnerabilities. Followers are drawn in, losing sight of their autonomy, and over time, their vulnerabilities are turned into tools for exploitation. Keep in mind that cults come in many forms. They can be in the internet space or outside the internet. People fail to acknowledge some of their own moral principles in favor of defending the person they worship, despite the evidence being stacked against them, for the reasons that we explained earlier, like them attaching to the hope of getting to the promises that their savior is giving to them. Let's now go over 4 key strategies that can help people become more self-aware and avoid falling into hero worship or cult-like behavior. The first strategy is to cultivate critical thinking. Encourage people to question information, even when it comes from trusted figures, instead of accepting ideas at face value. Individuals should learn to assess arguments, look for logical fallacies, and seek out multiple perspectives. A healthy skepticism can help people from blindly following someone, even if they appear charismatic or persuasive. Critical thinking can be nurtured through reading diverse viewpoints, engaging in debates, and participating in mindfulness to catch impulsive judgments. Number 2 is develop emotional intelligence. Becoming aware of one's emotions and how they influence decision making is crucial. Hero worship often stems from deep emotional needs, such as a desire for security, belonging, or purpose. By developing emotional intelligence, individuals can recognize when they are being manipulated or when their emotions are clouding their judgment. This helps in making more rational decisions and not becoming overly dependent on a single figure for emotional fulfillment. The third strategy is foster healthy boundaries. It's important for individuals to maintain strong personal boundaries, both mentally and emotionally. By recognizing when someone is crossing those boundaries, such as demanding excessive loyalty or unquestioning obedience, people can avoid falling into situations where they give up their autonomy. Healthy relationships are built on respect, not control. And being aware of when these dynamics are shifting can help prevent cult-like behaviors from taking root. In other words, stand up for yourself. Develop more self-confidence. And stand by your moral principles, even when the person you admire violates those moral principles. The fourth one is to build a diverse support system. Cults often thrive by isolating individuals from differing opinions or perspectives. To prevent this, individuals should cultivate relationships with people from different walks of life, with varying opinions and beliefs. This diversity encourages open-mindedness and helps counter the us versus them mentality often promoted by cults. When people are exposed to diverse viewpoints and experiences, they are less likely to become trapped in an echo chamber or groups that demand blind loyalty. One way that I prevented myself from falling victim to an internet cult was by having family members and close friends who I grew up with to help ground me. These people in my life are not so invested in the online news space where I was heavily involved during 2016 to 2022 when I broke away and wanted to focus more on psychology and spirituality for this channel. There were also people in the online news space who I developed a friendship with who also noted the same cult-like behaviors as I did, and some of them even helped to open my eyes to it. With others who are still so heavily invested in the cult-like behavior in the online news space, I unfortunately had to break away with them and protect my own inner peace. So this is why during 2022 to 2024, I was taking a bit of a hiatus and focusing on other things in life that I am interested in. This helped me to open my mind up more and realize there is more to life than that tiny internet bubble. Hero worship, as we learned, results from admiration of certain character traits that these people have and twisting it into sycophantic behavior. Psychologically, we want to be like that hero ourselves, which is why we admire those traits. We are all on our own hero's journey, And we have potential to become our own hero or savior. To learn more about this hero archetype that we all have, check out this video right here.